listening to the podcast Advertising Playbook, your resource to better understand and execute successful podcast ad campaigns. Hello and welcome to the podcast Advertising Playbook. I'm your host, Heather Osgood. Today, I am joined by Joe Cilio. He is the CEO and co-founder of Forever Dog Productions. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Heather. It's nice to be here.
So you have been in the podcast industry for about 9 years, and I have as well. So you and I have followed very similar paths, but this is the first time we're meeting. So it's nice to meet you. What got you into podcasting?
Nice to meet you as well. You know, I come up from the theater scene in New York. We were doing tons of plays and theater and comedy shows all across the country. And we just got tired in 2015 of performing for around 20 people. And we just said, theater's the best. We'll be back one day, but we got a life to live and we got to sell some more freaking tickets. So maybe we should try the podcasting thing. So in 2015, we said, let's do some podcasts. And then we made a couple good ones. Like our first one was Las Culturistas with Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers, which went on to be a very successful podcast to this day. And so with surrounding ourselves with talent like that, we got a great jump start in the comedy space. And we've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, that's great. I was very into theater in high school and decided not to go down that path. So it's always reassuring when you hear people say things like that, where you're like, okay, good. I'm glad I'm not in theater today and that I am in podcasting.
Theater, we'll be back. This is what this is all about. We're just trying to get back to theater. But first some podcasts, first some advertising.
That's right. I know. I always think when I retire, community theater is going to look amazing.
Can you imagine, low stakes? You're good. Like if you're committed, you're going to crush. Everyone's going to be grateful and love it. I think that's a great idea, Heather. You're going to kill it. Okay. You got to get out there when the day comes, when the time's right. We all got to go back to community theater. It's a good idea.
It's true. I love it. I love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit, I guess, about the structure of your company. I know that you guys have had a bit of an ad sales background, but it sounds like you also are kind of shifting a bit to video. What does it look like today, the landscape?
Yeah, so we come from podcasting like everybody else, like good old-fashioned audio podcasting, an hour long, become friends with your host podcasting. And now over the almost decade that we've been working, we've developed into what we are now, which is really a digital media company. And we aspire to be, and we actively are, a studio for the creator economy. So basically podcasting in our mind has just ramped up to being a core piece of any creator or any media business's blend. And that's what we make. So I guess we make the core thing of the blend now. That's great. And then so we said, okay, how else can we serve our clients and our brand partners and our goals about strategically growing as a media firm by incorporating the full new media blend into our podcast creation, which basically allows me to say now that we are a full-scale studio for the creator economy. And what that means is we do everything, or we can do everything, down the whole process from development to monetization. Podcasts to us means a really more expansive product to bring to market than just the audio podcast, which is why our whole transformation, the story is like many others. There was podcasting 1.0, then there was this era of industry consolidation, which was very competitive and difficult to sort of survive. And now we're in the post-entertainment landscape where everyone's trying to figure out what's next. And we've decided by necessity and by luck to embrace the change and go all in. We make podcasts. We love video. We want to be a video podcasting company. We think that's sexy and fun and cool and important. But, it's more expensive. It has challenges. We had to update our labor force essentially and train audio professionals to become digital media creators. It's tough. It's what every industry or every business in our industry is sort of adjusting to or dealing with. And we just said, great, whatever. We'll do all the things we're supposed to do. Let's do creator economy. Let's do social media well. Let's make our videos amazing. Let's figure out how to support talent. As everything sort of goes away and changes in the next 5 years and legacy media evolves into whatever this fragmentized, atomized media landscape's going to be. Forever Dog wants to be able to connect with fans authentically in that fractured space, and then be able to connect brands to those pools of people in an authentic post-TV, post-legacy media way.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. I love that.
expansive. It's expansive, but it all comes from the core thing of podcasting.
Right, right. And I really do believe that we're not just talking to podcasters anymore. We're talking to content creators. And I feel a lot of friction around this video conversation right now. There are some particular narratives that feel like they are really pushing video. And what I really want to make sure everyone hears that we don't get away from is that there is a place for audio. Like audio is not going away, and we need to continue to nurture audio. Now, we can add video on there, right? Like you are and I are recording in video right now, and we're going to be posting this on YouTube, and that's going to be great. Way more people listen to this podcast than watch this podcast on YouTube, right? But we can be content creators and we can show up in all kinds of different places. For me, as long as we don't lose the essence of what podcasting is. And it sounds like you guys are really embracing that.
Yeah, you only need to go where your audience can be authentically reached.
Right.
Not every single thing has to be everything. In fact, that's a waste of money and would be short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
It really is about understanding who you're trying to speak to, where you're going to meet them. And then, yeah, you have to do a little bit of understanding certain platforms or certain strategies to optimize certain platforms. Like if you put stuff on YouTube and you want to scale that content, it's a brand new game over there at the YouTube. And you got to learn that game if you want to do it. But you don't have to do anything. There's plenty of shows on my network that are simulcast and have big, beautiful video assets that I'd trade for a handful of audio podcasts any day because they're 17 times bigger. It's not about all the fancy bells and whistles. It's about certain shows I believe should have a way larger blend or can succeed more in a visual space. One of my podcast networks, Mom, is a drag queen podcast network.
Mm-hmm.
They're funny as hell on audio and people love them for years, but you know what they really love? Seeing drag queens in drag looking good on the camera. So, it's just conducive to our audience. It makes a lot of sense for what we're trying to do. Not everything needs to be a video podcast. And then people sort of like get offended that video is a thing in podcasting. It's like we made TV for 100 years and the radio is still awesome. I don't understand why we can't understand that we're going to have phone and we're going to have audio and we're going to have TV. And sometimes your show is going to be able to be both. I think the nervousness is like frustrating to me sometimes because it's like we've been frustrated for like 2 or 3 years, but I am excited there's like this like moment of like, okay, time for a new metric, essentially, is what we've all sort of come to. Okay, time to sit down with the brands and sit down with the agencies and sit down with us and think like, okay, how are we deriving value in a larger media blend? And once we sort of come to that metric, and we will, then I'm going to be grateful that a lot of my shows are succeeding on video, just as I would be grateful that they would succeed in audio or in live or in merchandise or any of those alternative revenue streams.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So I feel like that example that you gave with the drag queen network is a perfect example. Can you think of a show that maybe you produce where you're like, they're just really not a great fit for video?
A show has to be willing to meet video. It's like if you take a legacy podcast that's succeeding in audio, let's say for the past 10 years, you can't just snap your fingers and put that on YouTube. You can't just point a camera at the person, put it on YouTube, and expect there to also be 50K listeners on your YouTube product. That's not how the platform works. You have to adapt your content for YouTube, in our opinion. Like, in order to actually succeed on YouTube, for real, instead of complaining that it's just like, oh, it's only Joe Rogan succeeds. It's like, that's because he's been playing the video game for a decade savvily.
Forever. I mean, did he ever record in audio only?
Who knows? I don't know. People just get upset that like Theo Von's really good at video podcasting and their podcast isn't. It's like they've been doing it forever. And what I believe is that they've been worrying about this type of digital media for a long time, and they understand how to use it to their advantage, play with the algorithms and optimize their content and get it in front of people on social and on YouTube. And I think that podcasters get frustrated because they put one-to-one content on a different platform and then they're like, oh no, my podcast isn't performing on YouTube. Unfortunately, you have to optimize it to
Mhm.
succeed on that platform.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I think that's a great analogy. So, somebody told me recently, I think it was on an interview here, that one of the reasons that social media doesn't succeed in really producing audience growth on podcasts is because what most podcasters do is they take an audiogram and they put it on Instagram, and no one listens to audiograms or podcasts on Instagram because they're not there for that. People are on Instagram because they're wanting reels or they're wanting like quick snippets of images, right? Like Instagram has a very clear profile of the content that should be there. And when we try to kind of cross pollinate, it doesn't always succeed because why would it, right? So I feel like that is such an interesting comment. And I think so spot on because I do think what a lot of people do, myself included, if I'm being honest, right, is we're creating this podcast and I'm focused on audio, but we're like, well, we might as well just put it on YouTube.
So
But we
I
don't
did.
have, yeah,
Yep.
we don't have any subscribers on YouTube because we haven't tried to optimize for YouTube. So I guess what I'm curious, especially when we're talking simulcast, is
Yeah.
how do you create content where it's optimized for both audio and video at the same time?
Number one is communicating. So we do a video optimization thing. So some of
Okay.
our shows are more one to one. Some of our shows, it's an hour long podcast, and it's an hour long video podcast, and it succeeds. Sometimes we have an hour long audio podcast, but we're only clipping one segment, let's call it a 20-minute segment, and putting it on YouTube
Hmm.
because YouTube rewards watch through times. They want to see people hanging out on your page or on your video for as long as possible. So as you strive for 50% retention rates or listen through rates, it's easier to get 50% on a 20-minute video than an hour long podcast.
Right.
And you know how people's media diets are. You need to kind of like YouTube it up, like hit them with a sting and like get right to the juice, and the segment has to be punchy. And you got to kind of have that mind sense when you're recording for your hosts or your talent, that they sort of know that, hey, like secretly we're kind of making a YouTube video live. Some of our shows record for an hour and then they do a 20-minute version made for YouTube.
Hmm.
I'm really excited about this because we just saw Jesus on this one like 6 months ago, and it's been working for us. So I'm very excited that, okay, so how do you convince a brand? Well, you tell the brand like, hey, first of all, like they get it in their hearts. You just have to
Hmm.
get, we have to figure out the words, right? Like in their hearts, they know it's the same thing and it's two different things, but it's the same. But like, how do
Uh-huh.
we communicate it?
Uh-huh.
In a 21-minute, like, don't lie to me, brands, but it's okay. We're going to figure it out together. Basically, a 20-minute video can sustain a mid roll, and we can bake it into that YouTube content, which they love because a lot of our
Uh-huh.
audio stuff's DI.
Sure.
And you get it baked in that mid roll, and it's going to live there forever. And we just promise it's going to perform, and we show them the analytics and the back end that support that the audience is there. It's the audience they're looking for. And I personally am in love with the YouTube back end
Oh,
because
I'm
you ever
sure.
look at the freaking podcast back end?
It shows nothing.
It's like, okay, good. 15% of them are in Germany. That doesn't help.
I feel like that doesn't it feel that way when you open podcast ads? It literally is like, let me show you the globe. And you're like, that is not helpful. Thank you.
It's like, let me guess, UK and Australia, right? I know.
Wow, I'm
Uh,
shocked.
yeah. Anyway, and then on YouTube, it's like what they ate for breakfast, what they ate for lunch, what they ate for dinner. And then brands are like, but we can't put a pixel in. It's like, we'll figure out the fucking pixel. Don't worry about the pixel. There's pixels on YouTube. Let's Google it together. How do you do pixels on YouTube? Ask ChatGPT. I'm sure we can figure it out. I don't know what the answer is, and I have to figure it out. Do you know, Heather? What are we gonna do?
I think all of the points that you're making are really, really important. And I guess for me, part of it is I'm obsessed with the Diary of a CEO. And honestly, I was listening to it this morning, and it's, a great guest that's talking all about first impressions and body language and all of this. And I'm thinking to myself, I should really watch this because it would be really helpful. But I don't have time to watch it. I have to do other things while I'm listening. So I haven't watched it yet. If you are Joe Rogan, if you're Theo Vaughn, if you are Stephen Bartlett, go for it. Create a 2 hour long YouTube video and people are going to watch it. But I really believe everyone else, I don't necessarily think that we should be simulcasting our podcast and putting the exact same content on there. Because I pulled some stats that I think are really important for everybody to listen to. So YouTube videos are on average 4 to 5 minutes long, and the average percent of total video views is 50 to 70%, right? So, like what you were saying, YouTube wants you to watch 50%. Most content creators are never going to be able to get somebody to watch 30 minutes of a YouTube video. Like, it's just not the way that platform is consuming content. As opposed to podcast listenership, the average listening length is 30 to 40 minutes, and people spend 6 to 8 hours a week listening to podcasts, right? So they're just vastly different sets of content. And I think that from an advertising standpoint, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, brand, why don't you go on the podcast and you can go on YouTube and we're going to do the exact same thing? Why not just rework the whole thing and say, if you want audio impressions, you can do this and we can pixel track it. If you want video impressions, let's do this. And oh, by the way, we've got all of this information because YouTube gives it to us and we don't need to pixel track. So, like, why are we trying so hard to make them the same?
Exactly. It's because today the problem is, what are we doing about YouTube? And then tomorrow it's going to be, and also our content should live on a thing we all haven't heard about yet. And then we're all going to have to figure out how that one works. But if your core asset, if like the property, the show, your partnership with the talent is firm, then you can navigate these like platform by platform decisions and make content adjustments that can satisfy, different platform demands. But it is different. Longer form, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 60 minutes stuff can succeed, but it requires work. And yes, you don't get to start at famous. So Joe Rogan can be 3 hours long, but you don't get to start at famous. You have to start at building and rewarding the algorithm. It's like a weird game. You have to like play a weird little game of patience and like discipline and do the couple of things. And we learned it. Like, I did not know this a year ago. We have YouTubes a year ago because we had the cameras and we are like, we're doing video podcasting, but they were flopping, or, a lot of them.
Oh, interesting.
Some of them were flopping and we were just like, why not? And then eventually we were like, I don't know. I don't think we're doing YouTube right. We're gumming up the works. We're not paying attention. Nobody here is an expert in digital media distribution. And then when we started partnering with people that have been working in YouTube for 10 years to basically just tell us what's what, we very quickly understood what that platform values and how we can make our content serve those needs. Insofar as brands go, most of our video podcasts are minimum 21 minutes and they can range to an hour and a half. 21 minutes is an appropriate amount of time to have two mid-rolls baked into there without feeling bad about it. And also, soon I hope that YouTube will have, and they've said something like this, some version of DI-ish kind of stuff, which would be great financially, but also great tracking-wise. Because I think brands are hesitant right now about YouTube because, the listen-through rate's only 50%. If you put the spot at the end of the episodes, no one's going to hear it. It's like, well, that's true, totally understood. We need to have an impressions-like metric on YouTube so we understand that people are watching the ads and the ads are firing in like an easy way and stuff. But that's going to happen. That's already happening and it's going to happen. YouTube's the biggest podcast platform in the world and it's the biggest streaming service in the world. It's like, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I think you're totally spot on. I guess one of the questions I'm curious about, though, is should we be just doing ads? Well, I'm looking at it from an advertising perspective. And so I'm like, okay, well, if we know that half of the audience is leaving 50% of the way through the video, then does that mean we just need all of the ads before the 50%? But then if we put the ads before the 50%, does that mean that 50% of the audience is going to knock out at 25% when they see the first ad? Like, do you have any thoughts about that?
Ad load has to be, I guess, thoughtful, but people are resilient to advertising and know how to navigate it. And when their favorite creator is talking on their favorite show and then the YouTube ad pops up, like, they can live with it and they can skip it or they can complain. I don't know what to do about it. All I know is that as a publisher, I really want to make sure brands are comfortable and understand that their ads are being watched. And that's what I really want to find from YouTube is like the best way to communicate that because I just believe it's great.
Hmm.
Podcast discoverability is hard.
Hmm.
YouTube gives you an option to play their weird algorithm game and you can win it. Like it's just about best practices and knowing what you're doing. And the content has to be good, of course.
So tell me, when you have been able to use YouTube as a discovery tool. So we all know, and I'm sure Joe, for the last 9 years, you have enjoyed this comment, as have I, that discoverability in podcasts is horrible, right? It's like, yes, we
Sure, I
have
love that.
been saying this for 9 years. Obviously, the great thing about YouTube is discoverability isn't horrible. There is a nice algorithm. And I know that it sounds profitable. Did a study not too long ago that really showed that people were discovering podcasts on YouTube. They were listening to a little bit of it, and then they were saying, I really like this content. I want the full experience. I'm going to go over to my favorite audio listening app to listen to the podcast. So I guess I'm curious, and I think it's especially intriguing if we say, we are creating a 20-minute version of this content. We're creating YouTube appropriate content, but then we're going to say, and hey, if you're interested in a full length interview with Joe, head on over to Apple and listen to the full length episode. So, are you
We,
finding good conversion rates when you do that?
you know, like full transparency, I don't have an actual data point that shows me that that's happening, but I can say that our YouTube leading shows are doing better month over month on their RSS feeds as what you're saying is happening like by osmosis. People are
Sure.
watching a 20-minute spot and then they're in their car later. We have messaged that there's a 50-minute version of the interview on the podcast if you want. And our podcast numbers are going up, and that's probably part of that
Hmm.
blend.
Hmm. And don't you also think that part of it is the way that we consume content? So if I am at home and I'm on the couch at night and I'm like, man, I really want to listen to this podcast, I'm much more likely to pull it up on my smart TV and watch the YouTube version versus, I've got a long drive ahead of me. Why not go ahead and pull the podcast up? Or, I want to exercise this morning. I'm going to pull the podcast up. So is it possible too that we're just using the medium based on where we're at and what's going on in our lives?
Definitely, people's consumption habits will determine where they're watching the content, but our apps and platforms are already making these transitions seamless. Like, when you're on YouTube or Spotify, I think, and you're watching your video podcast, which is only available now and you can't find just an audio one, and then you turn your phone off like this, it's still playing the podcast. Now you're in the car. The world itself is helping us just always stay with the content as we flit in and out. Um,
Can you turn your screen off on YouTube and have it
don't
keep
quote,
playing
maybe
now?
not, maybe not.
Okay.
You're
I
good
think
point.
you have to have a YouTube premium subscription.
That must be it. And then I think on Patreon as well, you can do the click off. Don't quote me on it. But
I think you can on Spotify
okay,
too.
yeah. I just feel like personally, I'm flitting between spaces more and
Right.
more as time goes
Right.
on. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. No,
yeah,
I think that makes total sense. So, in terms of CPMs, do you
yeah.
notice a big difference between video and audio?
No, because the brands have been kind enough this year to allow us to sell simulcast.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a heaven on earth because 2 years ago, we were told our YouTube inventory was pennies on the dollar, worthless, added value. And then we all work together. And then we have this great new thing, Simulcast, where we're able to sell one to one. The CPMs are good,
Hmm.
really good. The
Hmm.
CPMs are great. We have niche shows with big audiences that like speak directly to people and speak to them authentically and have host read advertising and that's still very valuable and our CPMs are still high. I don't know what's going to happen.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so interesting because when you talk to companies that sell video only, their CPMs tend to be higher
Oh, really?
than, yeah, yeah. I mean, like,
Really? Wow.
I mean, $50 CPMs. And it's so interesting to me that I'm like, why are we not getting that? Right? Like,
Let's talk
um,
about this. Maybe you can answer some questions for me, Heather, because I have questions
sure.
for you. Okay. About this problem. Do you remember a couple weeks ago, Ashley Carmen from Bloomberg put out a little graph, and it had like branded influencer money and then like podcaster money. Did you see this?
I did not see that.
Yeah, long story short, it's like here's like a snapshot of video revenue. Here's the branded influencer line. It's so big. And then here's podcasting because we refuse to just stop being obsessed with calling ourselves podcasters. Like, okay, it's all this, but here's my thing. It's all the same, right? So like all the kids doing the influencer stuff, they're on the internet speaking to their fans. And here's like the podcast money speaking to their fans. How do we get in on this big line, Heather? Like, why are we siloed off on the side in audio world? And why can't our podcast or our video podcast get in more or more readily to this branded influencer money? Because now I have video podcasts. I want to put like a beautiful bottle of whatever on the desk, or the theater's sponsored by. I want to be more creative with our integrations, and that requires scale, and that's fine. I just wonder, how do I sell my shows to all the branded influencer reps? Because our social media over here in audio world is added value, and that's fine, and that's great, and I'm happy, but it has to be more than added value soon. Like, we have a ton of social media. It's millions and millions of impressions, valuable
no.
creators. And just because we call them a podcaster, I'm losing money for my clients essentially because I didn't call them branded influencers. Where's the money?
Right. Well, this is my opinion. I do not think that we are doing a good job calling on the agencies who are representing those brands. I also don't think that we as an industry have done a good job convincing the brands that we are influencers. And if there is something that I feel like for the last 9 years I have been saying, it is that if I am doing a host read ad and I'm here saying, Joe, have you never tried Magellan? It's amazing. It will change your world. Like, you should go subscribe to Magellan. Like, then that in and of itself is influencer marketing. And how in
Yes.
the world we are not classifying that as influencer marketing is beyond me. It's ridiculous. And but what
Yeah.
but what we're doing is we're living in this audio space, right? So we're saying we're audio, and we're going to talk to these agencies that buy audio. And when we go to brands and we talk to brands, we're going to talk to the buyer at that brand that buys audio. Why not say we're influencers and we're going to go to the influencer agencies? We're going to knock on those doors and say, hey, I've got a really amazing influencer that has all of this engagement. Do you want to engage with this influencer? But for some reason, and it's my fault too, right? Because I have a whole troop of reps out there that are not calling on those
No,
influencer
me,
agencies.
me too. Everybody.
But why
Yeah,
not? And
I
part
don't
of
know.
it, it's easy to go to these agencies that are these DR shops that are buying audio, right? It's easy just to go there because we know they're spending.
No, and they're great, and they make
Of course.
and we love them. I just am saying,
Of
like,
course.
I too crave just like it's because we all keep bickering about what's a podcast and is video good. It's like, you guys, you just are you obsessed with not moving on? Like, it's okay. Like, it's all changing now. We're all creators. ABC is a creator. Like, you're a creator, and we're all eating into the same market share.
Yeah.
Netflix now versus Forever Dog, and we're losing, but that's okay. It's the same competition. It's the same chunk of the pie or whatever. It's the same thing. I'm really like obsessed with this idea because it serves my needs, but also it's true. Content is just everything's just flattening and becoming
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Linear
It
TV
is.
is like spinning off assets like MSNBC. They're spinning off into its own thing. Like, MSNBC is now going to just be like a podcast YouTube network that has to like answer these questions, and they're going to go. Maybe they already know who's doing branded integrations or something, but like that's it. That's the game. Like, Forever Dog versus MSNBC versus your shows versus Netflix. All the same, all competing for hours watched, all competing for
Right.
eyeballs and
Right.
living in the platform. I'm really happy that you agree, and I want to keep pushing this. Like, podcasters aren't just influencers; they're like the most important influencers. They're the influencers that like sway the election. They're the most important influencers. Okay, they're like the king of influencers. Why are we acting like second class citizens in our own freaking creator economy? We invented it, podcasting. So, I don't know. I'm passionate about the idea that, like, yeah, I love that podcast is TV now. I love that TV is YouTube now. It lets people like me do what we got into podcasting 1.0 for, which is like, we get to have a studio and a network too, just like NBC. That's awesome. and we can program all our own shows. That's so cool. And that's what we did, and that's what we're still doing. And now with all of this mishigas in the industry, we have the ability to, I don't know, give it a whirl at trying to compete in a bigger way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The number one reason that I did not pursue becoming an actress was because I did not believe that I could compete with Jennifer Aniston. I was like,
How
I'm
dare
just
you,
not,
Heather? Don't
I'm
say
not
that.
going to be Jennifer Aniston. So,
We don't know
like,
that.
I
We don't
should
know
have
that.
I
Yeah,
should have taken the leap. I
there's
could have
time.
been
There's
Heather
time.
Aniston. Yeah. But I think the thing that is so cool to me now is that you don't have to choose. Like, think about all of the theater students right now, right? That are like in high school or in college thinking like, what should I do? Well, there's so many choices for them. And I think what's so cool and also is going to change so dramatically, I think in the next 10 to 20 years is we used to have all of our eyeballs on Oprah. Like there are some staggering statistics that when the Oprah show was on, that a greater percentage of the US population watched Oprah than anything else. We will never return to that, right? We will never have a time ever again where we can say 75% of the US population is listening to this podcast or watching this TV show or looking at this YouTube channel. Like everything, there is just so much content out there. And it opens the door in so many ways, but it also creates so much fragmentation. And I think that from a marketing perspective, we have to really look at how can we make these marketing professionals' jobs easier, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, their job is to move product and to sell subscriptions. And if we can share with them the value and the engagement of the content that we're creating and move that product for them, that's where solutions can be made. The problem is that there is still, especially I think at the brand level, there is still this like, well, we have $100 million and this much is going to radio and this much is going to TV and this much is going to digital and influencer, and we have to figure out how to get a piece of that pie, and we haven't been able to do that.
And just because I keep being like, it's all going to work out, it's all going to be flattened, it's all going to be democratized and figured out, doesn't mean that our businesses don't have to survive the next 5 years of figuring it out. And
Sure.
I want to figure it out quick because I have open inventory on great, big, beautiful shows, and that has
Hmm.
really authentic audiences. And our value, you're so right. If everybody is their own personal studio, what's the value of studios? It's like there's so much value.
Hmm.
Like we can actually support creators in their efforts to scale. Like essentially,
Hmm.
you know, whether it's via like content development or whether it's distribution strategy or it's just like the breadth and ability and quickness with which we can monetize the content. I agree with you. Studios are going to change and the brands that have it all siloed, like they will evolve and change, but right now that's the way it is. And unfortunately, despite all of my bluster, I will have to, after the podcast, you know, go figure out that question. How am I going to speak with the video person over at the company instead of just the audio team? And how am I going to bring those people together? How am I going to respect people's commission structure and make sure that everything's, you know, everyone has their own thing on the back end. It's not like
Sure.
they're trying to be ornery. Like they have bosses and they have bit like structures on the agency side. And the agencies have plans and goals too. It's really about figuring it out together. I get all heated because it's fun, but we will figure all these metric stuff out. But yeah, I hope it happens sooner rather than later because it's expensiver to make more stuff, you know? So I need
Right.
to be there. Not, it's
Right.
not crazy expensive. It's not television. It's not like a total mess if you are of a certain size, but it's just, it's more. So I just can't
Hmm.
wait for the industry to continue to mature. I can't wait for
Yeah.
my shows to continue to grow so that I can earn that the scale plays that I want to earn.
Hmm.
Um, but with all of the consternation, I'm feeling a version of positive.
Hmm. But that's good.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I was just at Podcast Movement in Chicago,
Mhm.
and I felt it could have been because it felt a little small. Um,
Well, it
were you
wasn't
in Chicago?
I was. They held it this year in the world's biggest building, so there was no choice but for it to feel small.
I would
It's
agree
like
with that.
it's just like how are you going to succeed if you pick like the biggest room any of us have ever been in. It's like you're in like a Wegmans in the suburbs, but there's no shelves. It was just like the biggest building you've ever seen. Um,
It was the
all right.
biggest building.
Anyway,
I
so
totally agree with you. But it felt a little
it
bit
felt
like
less. No, everybody mentioned nobody was there except all of our friends and business partners that we talked to all day long. But we all walked around and said no one's here except all of us, and it was too big. It was too big. I don't
it
know.
was. Well,
Yeah.
and I felt like for the first time really maybe in a long time that there was a level of almost just staticness that I feel like one of the great things about podcasting and like why it's been so much fun for 9 years is because it's like, oh, what's going to happen this year? Like,
Because everyone refused. It's because everyone's so worried that if they don't do a video podcast, everyone's gonna think that they stink, and it's just not true. Everyone's just so worried about video, and like it has sort of like stalled this out. I do think the whole conference felt just like a. It just felt like just like a bunch of series of nice verbal check-ins with our wonderful partners and friends, but
yeah,
nothing really. You're right. There was no like the energy was stilted because we're in this moment of like confusion. I think everybody. I think it's like maybe it's good. Maybe it's a blessing. Maybe everyone's just having this conversation and going like, okay, let's sit down and let's figure it out because we can't go to another podcast movement and have it be so boring. It has to be fun. Like it has to be
okay.
fun.
We're going to
Yeah,
commit right now, Joe, you and I, that
yeah,
when we go to Dallas, it's
yeah.
not going to feel stale. It's not going to
No,
feel stagnant. It's going to be next level.
it's
Like,
gonna
why
be it's
not?
gonna be like podcasting, the center of the creator economy, aka the business of entertainment. Like this is the core product. Like that's the energy. Where's the energy?
Right, right. But I guess I do think that perhaps where the energy is doing exactly what you just said. And what I have said for years is that podcast is the tent pole for us, right? Like it's the center of everything, but we can be surrounded by lots and lots of other bits of content as long as we keep podcasting the tent pole. And perhaps that is the next real story is us talking about this evolution toward content creation, maintaining the tent pole of the podcast.
Absolutely. Podcasting is like its value will be the same in the future. It's like you spend more than a minute with somebody. It's like the
Mhm.
value of podcasting, like it's the show of the brand. And it's always going to be like the core of the output because it's the most opportunity to engage authentically with
Right,
what the person or the brand or the
right.
company or whatever the core IP of your show is. Um, that's the home base for the
Yeah,
engagement. Engagement's going to win the day. So
yeah,
podcasting is essential.
it is. It is. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. I think that we've had a great conversation and we both agree. And I hope that brands and advertisers who may be listening agree that there is so much potential in podcasts and there's so much potential in all of these different mediums and platforms as well. So there's a lot there and we're here to, really help brands and advertisers succeed.
That's all I
Any
want to
kind of
do.
final thoughts?
No, yes, if you are a brand listening, my only goal is to help you convert, sales. I understand, and I think I have a really good blend to get you in front of the right people. And I'm really grateful for when brands and partners trust us as we go into this video, social media moment. So that's my final word. And also, thank you, Heather, for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here, Joe. It's been a great conversation.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed this somewhat animated conversation about the value of video and podcasting. Yeah, thanks for being here, and we will catch you again next episode. Thank you for listening to the Podcast to Advertising Playbook, your source to a better understanding of the podcast to advertising industry.